right, so a couple of words about myself. It took me about 2 years to get the approval from New York State to be a teacher in this school. You know, they look at all my credentials and I had to take a class. And, you know, anyway, here we are. I'm right now officially a New York approved holistic wellness counselor. And we're going to have a presentation on Qigong, on medical Qigong essentially. So for the next hour, we're going to look at a few subjects connected to that. So I hope, excuse me, at the end of this, you'll have an idea of what we're getting into. So this is a 1 hour presentation. We could go to the slide number 3. All right. So what is Qi? You know, I often was asked the question, the word circulate around, what is Qi? Do we have a Western equivalent? And we have sort of a Western equivalent, and here it is on the slide. It's translated loosely as life force or the energy of life. And, you know, it says Qi is understood as energy which circulates in our bodies in the universe. Energy is also the medium through which the powers of nature and cosmos enter and influence the human system. So is this a Western concept? And the answer is not exactly. Used to be about 100 years ago or more, there was something called a vital fluid, which science dropped. And today we know that there are things that are alive, but how life came into being, into cells, is still a mystery to the Western scientists. It's more the, you know, for mystics, for, you know, people who are not into physics, but into metaphysics. And, you know, understanding this concept of Qi requires a little bit of a stretch. I'm not going to bore you very much with this. I'll just go and says what it says on the slide, and then I'm going to make it a little more lively, because if you have an understanding of what you're talking about and where do you find this Qi and how you can look at it, it starts all of a sudden making sense, you know. So Chinese distinguish several kinds of Qi. They say there is heaven Qi, there is earth Qi, so there is something above and something below, and there is something in the middle, the human Qi. And essentially, if you go into the way Chinese look at Qi, of course, you know, direct translation means steam over rice. And we don't know if it means steam over rice, that you look at the pot where the you know, rice is boiling, or you look at a field with rice shooting up in the morning where there is a mist over it. But there is some kind of a misty understanding into this Qi definition. And we know there are categories, some that come from above is more rarefied, and some that's a little more dense. Actually, if you look into the Chinese cosmology, they say that everything is Qi. Is this substance that you don't see, this Qi thing that condenses into matter and gets lighter when it approaches spirit. So spirit is not something like in, you know, some Western cultures that is existent in the beginning from which things condense. It's the other way around. Qi existed in the beginning and it got rarefied into spirit and it got condensed into matter. So when you look at Tian, heaven, Qi, forces of heavenly bodies, weather, climate, including the more refined stuff, spiritual phenomena, all I'll be into heaven Qi. The earth Qi, forces, lines, patterns of energy, magnetic force, and heat, like volcanic heat. There is something telluric into the earth Qi. And Ren, human Qi, is something that exists within the confine of a person while the person is alive. Now, did you have an idea of the Qi? I said not yet. You have a concept of it. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what does Qi feel like? So if I'll ask you, people who took Reiki have an idea of energy work. So some people do, but in general, it's very, very vague. However, if you start studying Qigong, you find out that the feeling of Qi is something that not only the person who practices feels it, but also a person who will receive a Qi treatment will feel something. And this particular feeling has no equivalent in, like I feel in love, you have an equivalent. You know what I mean? If I feel enthusiastic. If you know what I feel. I feel heavy. You know what I mean? I feel excited. You know what I mean? But if I say I feel chi, you say, what do you feel? Most of us will say that. What do you mean? Well, so let's have a little exercise to bring everyone on the same page so that we feel chi. So just do as I do. Clap your hands, rub vigorously your palms for about 30 seconds, about 10 breaths or so, somewhere around there. It's a minute, so about 5 breath cycles. So it will be, you push it like you feel like stopping, rubbing your hands. No, push a little more. Go another minute, another second, another 15
I'm
something.
tired.
All right. All right. So that's it. Take a deep breath and then clap again. And let's do it again. You do this vigorous thing, like you're cold from outside, you come cold and you rub your hands to warm them up. All right. And then it will all make sense in a few seconds. Let's do it again. Clean breath. We're building so much energy together. We probably could start an electric car company at the end of this. All right. Ready? Okay, keep one hand like this and move the other hand about an inch away up and down your palm. And now you're going to have a faint sensation on the palm that's upright.
You're doing 6?
You're going to have a sensation over there. And you say, well, what is this? It's kind of a tingle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the tingle on both hands.
All right, but this is a sensation of Qi.
Mm-hmm.
It's tingle, heat, or, hot or cold.
I feel it.
Bravo.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
so see, there is
I
no
do too.
equivalent. We just a sensation of Qi, And if you practice, it gets better with time. By now I practice over many years. I keep my hands 6 feet away from each other, which is about the max I can do. I move a hand here and the other one feels it. All right, you get good at it in time. So you could practice to see when is the sensation disappearing. Sort of like a sensation of taffy in between your hands, something like elastic, So voila.
Right.
About
Yeah.
2 minutes, everyone has a sensation of Qi. You're born with it. You just didn't practice. All right, so now that we know Qi represents energy itself, out of which life is one aspect. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so now we're getting into a little more of, what the theory says, So Qigong is the skill of body-mind exercise that integrates the 3 adjustments of body, breath, and mind into one. So this thing of the 3 adjustments. Okay, so if you get into the practice of Qigong or practicing exercises in which this sensation increases and you start controlling this particular part of your life force, you're going to find out that this is done by those 3 adjustments. One is posture. In other words, you learn to align yourself to gravity, to the axis in between heaven and earth, in such a way that you have an optimal alignment. How do you know that? You know, when you wake up, if you remember, some people stretch. You know, you stretch your body to get into alignment. Or if you sit too long and you stoop on the chair, you're going to straighten out again to achieve some kind of internal alignment. You see animals do that. Cats stretch all the time. You know, they do also something with the jaws. Ah, you know, like that. My daughter's dog is famous. You know, it has those big yawns. You know, and so you realize that it's an internal adjustment that takes place. So it's of that nature. The breath adjustment. Now we know that you could do things with your breath. Everyone heard about Lamaze that induces, you know, certain contractions when you give birth for those who do so. And you know, when you run, you breathe faster, and when you're calmer, you breathe slower. And also when you have emotions, if you are frightened, it's different than if you are happy, you know. So you understand there is an adjustment in breath that occurs according to the situation internally. So if you decide to study this Qigong, you have a Qigong practice, breath adjustment, okay, I got a note saying, "Hi, Anton, perhaps people can mute their microphones." So let's pay attention to that. If you have a microphone that's not muted, then we're going to have extra sounds. So breath can be, hello, mute yourself. Noise in the background won't let us hear. All right, hello there. Hello, everyone. Mute your mics, please. All right.
Excuse me, you can have Mr. Flores mute everyone.
Yeah, I don't want to disappoint myself. Probably I can do the wrong thing. So please help me out with that.
All right, so I'll pray that it gets resolved, and I'll continue. If it doesn't get resolved in a couple of minutes, you know, send me another text. Okay, so adjustment of breath. So a regulated breath, in other words, with the breath, you could do a bunch of things. If you go the other way, supply side economics. If you breathe slower, or if you breathe abdominally, or if you breathe reverse abdominal breathing, you will induce certain states that combine with that alignment of the body that we talked before. And then there is a third alignment, which is the alignment of the mind. What thoughts do you have when you practice those exercises? You know, are you going to think about doing the laundry? Are you going to think about what shopping list you're going to have? Are you listening to the news? Or you start paying attention to what is happening in your body during the exercise. In other words, you're mindful of what you do, how you breathe, your alignment. And if you coordinate those three things, you will obtain a state that is induced by your own will. And that is the purpose of the exercise, to induce this meditative standing, moving sequence in such way that you reach an opening, an internal opening of a state of mind, the Qigong mind set. It's got its own name. We don't have a Western term. Perhaps it's a meditative state or a mindful state. So you obtain a state of harmonious unity. It contains both elements of physiology and of psychology, using Western terms. It implies mastering practice, regularity, skill, refining your movements, and techniques, understanding what they mean. All right, next slide. Now, Qigong as a field uses some principles. I'm not going to go through all of them. We only have 1 hour. The course is pretty long. We're talking about 14 3-hour stands, no? 3 hours, 14 times to cover the material. So it's pretty serious. But now I'll just give you a brush, a schmear. Like you go to the store and you get a bagel, it says, would you like with cream cheese? No, just give me a schmear. Like this, that's a schmear. Schmear of Qigong. So I is mind and Shen is heart-mind, which is a concept that we dabbled into the West. Like there is a Heart Math Institute, heart-mind, a connection in between the heart and the mind, including emotions. So Yi is related to wisdom, Shin, emotions. Then they talk about the 3 dantians. Again, no Western equivalent. What's a dantian? Show me yours. I'll show you mine. No, I'm joking. A dantian is an energetic center of a certain quality. You have an upper one that contains mind things. You have a heart one, middle dantian, that is in the middle of your chest, and you have a lower dantian in the lower abdomen. From all of them, the one that is used the most, especially in martial arts, is the lower dantian. Lower dantian shows up a lot in Qigong, a lot more than the middle dantian or the heart or the head area, no, the upper dantian. And their energetic centers, they have no physical basis except generically, somewhere in the head area, somewhere in the heart area, somewhere in the belly button. However, I will tell you this much, that if you want to know where your lower dantian is, there is a fast way of put your thumb in the belly button, and then the hand will fall over your dantian, which is somewhere about, where your intestines are. It's about the size of an orange, And then they use another concept, the triple burner. This is an energetic thing, A lower burner is a furnace that purifies and distills qi into longevity. It corresponds to the lower dantian. So lower dantian is the geography, and the lower burner is the activity. The middle burner place of post-birth qi, air and food convert into qi. So in the middle burner is, you have lungs and metabolism, sort of, like you distill this air and food. You inhale air, you oxygenate, you have circulation, and then you have the breakdown of food that gets assimilated. So that is the middle burner's activity. I'm going to mention something that's very interesting. Have you seen the Tibetan monks having a tumo practice? T-U-M-O, tumo? Anybody saw a documentary with some guys that sit in the snow, half naked, and they have wet towels over their backs, and the towels steam, and they dry. And when they dry the towel on their back, they succeeded with the practice. That's called tumo. And that is a practice of the lower burner. They learn how to make a fire in the lower burner, they intensify it, and then cold doesn't bother them. They can, increase body temperature. And the upper burner is a place where air jing converted into qi. Hello, Jessica, you said, and hello to everyone. All right. The place where the air is converted into qi is in the upper burner. Now, air, when you talk about things coming out of China, things are not exact. Chinese is a very old language and it's pictorial. So when they say air, it means many things. It means wind, it means even ideas. So take it with a grain of salt or two. Let's go to the next slide. All right, types of Qigong. Well, Chinese have been uninterrupted in their evolution for a long time. You know, like they go back thousands of years. And when you compare that with the 2,500 years that we had in the United States in the form that we are now, and then the the other history, the Native American history, that it has not a lot of records, you understand that you cannot exactly compare. You have to take the fact that they had this tradition a very long time. That's basically how you say it. So the old way was the Taoist way. Taoist, it's a mystical tradition that has to do with natural way and mystical. Tao is the emptiness from which everything emerged. Later came this Confucian type of Qigong. Confucians are known to have rules and regulations. Some of them are like to have a long life, you have to preserve your reproductive forces. So you abstain from sex, you're going to live long. That would be a Confucian principle. Others have to do with government, governing, how there is a symbiosis in between people who govern and the ones that are governed. Buddhist. The Buddhist type of Qigong is much later, appeared later. We're going to know in the next slides. And it's a combination of religion and exercises for people who don't really want to be on earth. They want to achieve a state in which you're freed from samsara, from karma, from things that tie you to matter. Martial. A lot of young people are very interested into this because you get powers, you get competitive skills. So martial applications of Qigong were introduced sometime in the middle of the evolution of Qigong in history, and they're still practiced today. For example, one of those things is something called the iron shirt, in which the skin becomes, through exercises, much stronger than it is now. Like we know in the classes I was taking with Master Peng, he would put here on the fossa of the neck a chopstick like this, and then he will smash it and the chopstick will explode. And some of his students are doing this. They're not the bamboo chopsticks, I'm going to make that parenthesis, they're the plastic ones, but still, there is something to say that they can increase resistance, competitive skills, force, and some things bordering magic. Medical Qigong is what myself I'm interested in. It has to do with health restoration and maintenance of health. It's very good in chronic conditions. And then there is one more, the folk or spontaneous Qigong that appears through download. I met, for example, an older Chinese woman in Maryland who was creating a form of Qigong that didn't exist before, together with an ascended master. And the name of the Qigong was Phoenix Qigong, and she was teaching it at an acupuncture school in Laurel, Maryland. Let's go to the next slide. History of Qigong. Now, to understand this, you have to have somewhat of an overview over thousands of years, about 5,000. So we have 2,500 years or so before Christ, before our era. And we have another 2,000 and some years in our era. So if you take this as a chunk of time and you want to compare it to what everyone knows, you have to go about the time of Moses, all right, to get when this stuff was taking place. So a very scarce record. The Neijing, the Yellow Emperor treatise is from they say 2690, 2700 before Christ. So it's kind of long ago. when they put down the first principles of traditional Chinese medicine. After that, there is this other book that's fundamental, about 1100 BC, I Ching, the Book of Changes, where you had the trigrams that was used ever since. And then you have the Nanjing, which is the classic disorders. And that's enough to say there are a lot more than that, but they say they're scarce records. Those are the main ones. So during this time of the Han Dynasty, oh, let me tell you a word about dynasties before, because I keep and throw it. It's not that TV show, the dynasties. This is a little different. What you're talking about here is that about every 100 years, you had 3 people. That's, they're about, every 30 years, there is a change in the government, because those are hereditary. Sometimes they get killed. They're young. Sometimes they're replaced by others. But if you take this as a statistic rule of thumb, and you have a lot of people in 5,000 years, right? Do the math. 3 every 100. You multiply it. I don't have my phone with me, but you get an idea. So it means that there were those groups of people that belonged to a certain family or network that lasted for a period of time in which there were many proponents. So one way to keep a track of the history of Qigong is to have an idea of the dynasties. So this is how they teach it in China. They say, before the Han Dynasty, all right, somebody's got his phone going. All right, thank you. Okay, so here it comes again. This is a persistent one. Well, I'm going to wait a second. So what are you going to do about this? Can we continue? All right, mic off. Thank you, thank you. No, he's back.
Anton, I think you should just have everyone muted.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
yes, I think so.
Anton, I think you
Mute
have to be the one
everybody.
to
I
mute
don't have
everyone,
the
though.
control. Mr. Flores is the headmaster.
Yeah, I don't wanna. Last time I did it, I couldn't do it, so I don't wanna do it again.
Do you see the button that says
You
mute?
should, yeah, just push a mute button.
There's
He
a button that says
apologized. He muted
not on
me.
your keyboard, on the screen.
On the screen, they
Okay.
say microphone, same
Okay.
assistant.
Everyone. Okay, let me explain. Let me speak to him in Spanish and I'll tell him what to do. Señor Flores, usted ve abajo que dice participants.
Yes.
Ok, préate ahí no dice participants y va a ver la lista ahí de todo el mundo.
Sí. Okay.
Ok, entonces ahí usted es el host, ok. Entonces vas a buscar abajo, ok.
Mute all.
Exacto, ahí eso.
Okay.
Ok, ya.
Okay, Professor Barashi, I want to take you back.
No, now, Anton, now you're muted too. Oh, no.
Well, I want to unmute Professor.
Yes, unmute him. You have to mute yourself. Unmute the professor.
Okay. So you guys, you listening or not?
I can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
We don't hear
Unmuted.
Anton, though.
I didn't?
No,
Anton.
Anton's still muted.
Anton, you can unmute yourself.
Upper right-hand corner, Anton.
The little microphone.
All right, I got it.
Okay, Professor. I think so.
Thank you. Thank you to the younger generation.
Okay, now you got to mute yourself. You got to mute yourself.
All right. All right, let's go. So, okay. All right, let's all do that. Terry is saying mute yourself. Okay, we continue now. So the Han Dynasty is before 206 BC, when you have those books. And at the time, there were two types of Qigong, Confucian and Taoist, for health and longevity. And you had the mystics, the Taoists, and you had the ones whose rules and regulations, simply put. And so the priestly caste and the ones that were more involved into the government and, things of the king or emperor. Now, into Qigong, there was no religious color to training. The training was sort of considered like calisthenics today. When you practice calisthenics, it doesn't have much to do with prayer. But it was an undertone. If you were a Taoist, there was something mystical about the Qi you're working with. If you were a Confucian, you had to go by those rules and regulations. And the training part, the forms are focused on the natural way. So if you look at the exercises, you're going to find out that they have a lot of things with animals or nature, standing as a tree or the 5 animal frolics. All right, next slide. Okay, from the Han to the Liang Dynasty. That is about 200 years before Christ and 500 years after. So that takes us about to the time when Muhammad was around, 600 years after. And you're going to find out in here that Buddha had already occurred in about 600 years BC in India, and then he started trickling down into China. So you have 3 schools of Qigong during the Liang Dynasty: Indian Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and Taoism. So what happened to Confucian? You say, well, it kind of dropped down. It wasn't so much in practice. It was still there. But the focus was on this new religion that came from India, which is Buddhism. And it brought a different attitude to life. While on the other hand, the Taoists continue as the original the religious practice of China, Buddhists started making inroads. So the majority of religious teachings were secret in monasteries. And Qigong was riding together with that. So there were secret practices into monasteries. So some of the religious practices were about escaping the cycle of reincarnation. So you do this stuff in order not to incarnate anymore. You purified yourself. This is a concept that not many of us have it. We're just trying to pay our taxes and save money for retirement. But to meet someone who says, I don't want to be here anymore, I'm going to do practice so I don't have to pay taxes ever again. That's kind of the mindset. And the religious theory of Qigong is deeper and harder than non-religious Qigongs because the practices get really deep inside. For example, to give you an idea, what do I mean by deeper? About the year, was about 2000, in Beijing, showed up a woman who started practicing a Qigong that nobody saw before. She was an elderly woman, about 71 or so. And this was a practice, a Taoist practice that she was not allowed to teach until she got to be 70 years old. So you're going to practice your entire life in secret. You get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you practice until 4 or 5 in the morning, then you go to sleep some more, and nobody knows about it because you do it in secret. And you cannot teach it. You can't talk to anybody until you get to be 70. In other words, you reach, that's a restrictive practice. It's deeper and harder than non-religious ones. The Qi circulation theory of this time leads to more efficient practices. So there was a part that developed with the internal circulation of energy through a meditative practice. So some of the Buddhist mystical practices had to do with meditation and energy at the same time. And that's all you have to remember. Let's go to the next slide. This could get quite deep. Period from the Liang Dynasty to the end of the Qing Dynasty, which is 1911. So from the time of Muhammad until about 1911, World War I, just about, we have certain practices that become very physical and intense. Muscle tendon changing. You could change your muscle and tendons for real. They become strong. Yi Jin Jin. It's a beautiful exercise set. Brain and marrow cleansing. There are exercises through which you circulate the energy to clean your nervous system. You know, it's a specific practice. Baduan Jin, eightfold brocade. It's a physical practice with 8 aspects. That's why they call it eightfold brocade, 8 exercises. You know, you could maintain your body in a good shape just with those exercises for a very long time. Qigong was adopted in martial arts. Qi circulation and theory of medical Qigong in acupuncture reached peak, circulating Qi through the acupuncture channels. I like to use an analogy to describe the channels and meridians that makes it inner visualization very simple. Imagine that you look at the Manhattan subway system where this is the Bronx and your feet are Brooklyn. And you have all those lines going in between the Bronx and Brooklyn, and they meet in the middle of your chest at 42nd Street, then you have 14th Street, you have 4th Street below, and the lines kind of mix. And if there is you have a construction on a line, the energy slows down, the subway slows down, goes to local. And if you remove that, the construction is finished, goes back to express. And that will be an analogy of Qi circulation, through acupuncture pathways. Religious Qigong, still a secret. And then that's an important point because something happened later. Qigong exercises in society became popular. So people start doing things in the parks that were mostly the external Qigong forms, not the internal religious one. Next, please. Period from the end of the Qing Dynasty to present. Now, at some point, all the stuff that was secret started being published. And the year when we saw the most was 1978. From 1978 until about 2000, it was an explosion of secret documents. A lot of masters came out and they started publishing in China, and maybe, I would say probably about 10% got translated in the Western languages, in English. Some in German, some in Russian. All right, and we have a little note over there. So that's how I came to know about it. I didn't know much about it until about the year 2000, and I got sick, and somehow one Chinese coworker introduced me to this stuff. And I found that if you are looking, you are finding documents. And not all of them were very good quality, but some of them were very, very interesting. There was mystical Qigong, and the ones that I'm very fond of that you don't find them anymore are those two. This one in here is the Beijing Encyclopedia of Traditional Chinese Medicine. That's the book on Qigong. And this is from Shanghai. And they're bilingual. So I sleep with them under my pillow. It's a lot of information over there. So many secret documents were published. Many masters started publishing in both Chinese and English, mostly in Chinese. And there started being an exchange in between Chinese and other nations with similar modalities, like Japan, Korea, India, the Middle East, in Indonesia, and some in the Philippines. And then they started having investigations into Qigong using technology. This is a very interesting aspect. They started doing research in institutions where they teach and they practice medical Qigong. And some of the experiments, like they take little petri dishes with bacteria and they expose one to Qi and the other one not, and they compare. And there are things like, somebody told me, they cut a cucumber in half and then they rotate it at 90 degrees and then they make it fuse back with Qi. Those are interesting experiments. And in some of those institutions, not only the experiment, but they started practicing healing. Healing was always connected because medical Qigong is part of traditional Chinese medicine. So if you go in a little village in China, they do three things. They do needles, they do herbs, and they do Qigong. All right, let's go to the next slide. Subject related to medical Qigong. Let me see how I'm doing with the time. We're doing fine. Classic Chinese philosophy, they're entwined. If you study Taoism, you will have something with Qigong. If you studied Buddhism, you will have something with Qigong. Religion. Back. Good. Thank you. Same thing. Religion or philosophy, they're probably interchangeable. Acupuncture and Tuina. Acupuncture is part of traditional Chinese medicine, but it follows implements, it follows needles. The pathways are the same. Qigong will use just energy, touch or no touch, but there will be no implements. Tuina is deep tissue massage that has an energetic part, but the physical part is primordial. Physical exercises, you could increase your stamina through Qigong, and some of them are physical exercises, but they have another part that is connected to what you do with your mind and with your breathing. Psychotherapy is also connected because, simply put, you practice Qigong, you're going to be a much calmer person. And there will be a regulating activity. It will be like you get something that is consistent in your life. It's an energetic hygiene. And therefore, you will have less swings into your soul, mood swings. Right. In natural medicine, herbalism is, tangent. Next slide, please. Some of the benefits of the study of medical Qigong. Now, this I love because this is what we're doing right now. Enlightened understanding. Exchange between people with similar understanding. This is it. We have similar understanding. If you wouldn't have it, you wouldn't be tonight here listening to me. You'd be watching a movie or the news. Now, special abilities. Now I'm going to make a pause because with the practice of Qigong, at some point, there are special abilities that happen. What are they? Well, one of them is that you can heal others. You will know about others a lot more than they tell you. Intuitively, you have an inner awareness or understanding of the flow of Qi, of the flow of life, that it will convey to you information in a non-verbal way. you'll have to learn to translate. In psychic terms, it's called a reading. I met, for example, a gentleman who came, used to be a teacher at the Huasha Center in China. And he was teaching special abilities. And we managed through a translator to have a little chat. And he says, oh yeah, we are teaching people how to stop watches at will and restart them. Also how to bloom a bud and to wither it. In other words, you learn how to manipulate life force in such a way that it has some physical effects. Those are called special abilities. Qigong practice, the health aspect. Whoever practices Qigong will have less symptoms of whatever they do. And if you practice them for a while, it starts regulating the energy in such a way that you will also live long and in much better shape. So I'm going to say and venture the following thing. In my 50s, I was a lot less active than I'm now because I was in pain pretty much all the time. And now I get up and I look for action. I'm very happy. So it works. All right, mental tranquility. You're not anymore panicked by things. Is Trump going to win? Or are you going to be, what's this happening with the COVID? Am I going to be positive? I don't find a vaccine. All those things, you're not panic anymore. You're kind of connected to life and you have an inner trust and infinite supply of energy that stays with you. All right, let's go to the next one. So let's take a sample of a medical Qigong form that is not exactly an average one, like some of the forms like Tai Chi, everybody saw in a park or you saw a video or so. So let's talk about one that is a little bit more mystical, a Taoist practice. 6 healing sounds, 6 syllable formula. So what do you have here in this form? I'm not going to exactly demonstrate. There is a link to the somebody demonstrating over there. So coming from shamanic time, from very old times, there is an intuitive understanding that certain sounds communicate energetically with certain parts of your body. And then I have to give you a way of understanding this. Imagine that you're babysitting for your sister's kid. And the kid is very noisy. What are you going to tell him? Shut up! Or you're going to do something like shh. Because shh is a calming sound. Shh. Now, everybody knows this. Where did you learn that? Did you learn Qigong when you were a kid? Well, your babysitter maybe did it. So there is a relationship in between sounds and moods. We know about laughter, it's contagious. By yawning, it has an effect. So in this vein, there are those sounds that affect the liver. They're very old. Shoo, shoo. It will affect your liver if you do it together with a motion that activates the channel of that particular organ. And that is connected to wood. Now, it's not a log by your fireplace we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that in traditional Chinese medicine, they have a material cosmology of 5 elements, each one turning into the other one. And in that cosmology, wood represents something in between, I think, fire and earth. So here you have the next sound, he or ki corresponding to heart, and fire, hu corresponds to spleen and earth. Syllable Si corresponds to lung and metal. And the exercise is sort of like when you pull a bow. You know, you pull it like this, you know, and that's how it will act on the lung. Then Shui corresponds to kidney and water. Shi corresponds to triple burner or Sanjiao. And here is one thing that I wanted to point to. Many of the Chinese things are traditional, they are not necessarily logical. So if you try to apply Greek logic, Aristotelian, to those Chinese exercises, you're going to fail miserably. So you could only by analogy or by taking it the way they say it, and let it run inside you for a while, get a learning knowledge of it, and then try to compare. For example, in here, 5 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, correspond to the elements, and the 6th one corresponds to the triple burner, which does not have an element. It's basically the energetic system. They transgressed categories. Take it as it is. Don't challenge it. If you do, you won't understand it. If you want to click on that link, it will give us a master doing those sounds, and let's listen for about a minute. So what I said starts making sense. Somebody, let me see. Mr. Flores, do you hear me? You're muted, so I can't. Okay. Can you click on the link?
Yes, I am there.
Click on the link and let's see if we could get a few minutes of the video.
Is there? Do you see the?
You have to share the screen. Prete abajo donde dice share screen.
Now let's see. Now we don't have sound in this. If we don't get the sound, I think we should stop it and then share sound.
Dale volumen.
Ya tiene todo volumen.
Oh.
All right, let's do this because everyone will get the link, so you could listen later. Let's go back and because we won't get the sound. Let's move on.
Cierre la pantalla.
Okay.
All right. So let's go on to this slide. A drugless approach to healing today. Probably the most interesting experiment that ever took place on Earth was this. All right, we're getting there. The Huasha Center. It lasted about 5 years until the year 2000. And during that time, they treated 400,000 people with only with Qigong. And they had a recovery rate of 90%, split into 30% complete remission, 30% significant improvement, 30% improvement, and 10% no effect. Now, this particular hospital was closed by the Chinese government in the year 2000 because of Falun Gong. And Falun Gong was a part of Qigong that took over China that had religious undertones. So the Communist Party shut it down in a very simple way. They said, we forbid gatherings of more than 50 people. Now, at this hospital, they had about 2,000 patients, and there were 400 teachers. So it was massive. It was in a house into a former army barrack. And by the time they closed it, Dr. Ming Peng, who was the head of this particular venture, had obtained money from a Taiwanese wealthy person. And he started building a building like a bagua, with 8 sides. He had 3 of the sides built when this directive came, so he retired. He's basically in some form of a village house arrest. He doesn't go any place, but he writes books. He's still active. But the 400 teachers that were in that place scattered across China, and many of them opened up little clinics with 49 people. And that's how it is today. So if you want, if on this link, if you click it, you're going to see, you could run the link, the sound doesn't matter very much. What you're going to see is instant healing. There is a gauntlet of Qigong practitioners, and you have people in wheelchairs being walked in between them, and they give them energy. And at some point, some of them are getting up from the wheelchairs and walking. So let's watch it for about 4 minutes. All right, so click on the link. And now I will explain what happens. Those are people that are either on a stretcher or in the wheelchair. And you have a bunch of practitioners. And then you have in the background a bunch of people that creating the field. Those are the people that live at this hospital for maybe a month. They housed into the barracks, and they come, some people come from a distance, some are close, and they form this huge chi field that is coherent. And then they bring the people who are invalids, and they treat them. That's Dr. Ming Peng in the middle in the white shirt. And, they bring people to him, and then he is giving them a chi treatment. And then the people around are pushing energy onto them. And if you hear the sound, and you could listen to this later, you're going to see that they have loudspeakers that coordinate the sound. That says ta 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 ta. There is some kind of a rhythm, and that when they move the hands, they obey to that rhythm. And this coherent energy is something that you could do collectively. And we're very happy to have this very poor quality video from from this hospital that closed. But by the 3rd person, you're going to start seeing the little miracles. This was a woman who cannot walk on her own. And they raised her, and then they start giving her energy. And then she's going to start ambling, walking. And then in the background, you're going to hear the people donating energy. Those people on the gallery over there, they're not just sitting, they have their hands up, and they're maintaining the field. From the Huasha Center came that video that some of you maybe watched, in which 4 Qigong masters dissolve a urinary bladder tumor in real time. And there are 2 screens, one that shows the original shape, the urinary bladder tumor with a little bump, and then the other one is in real time. And when they dissolve it, they go with energy, tumor starts flickering and then gets extinguished like a flame and dissolves. That is still on the YouTube. Now you see the collective field sustaining her, and then she's making, she moves her legs. Those nerves that haven't been used in a while now start functioning. It takes a village, but it's very encouraging. After I saw this is to me the stuff of miracles. I always was dreaming. I'm dreaming, I'm saying, what if we get a whole stadium of people and at the end of a football game, you get a few people in the wheelchair and whoa, and then they walk out on their own, Now watch this one. You see the jumping of the energy? This guy really takes it. And he gets into the flow and then goes on his own. Now, this is what you call instant healing. He got it. No more wheelchair. All right, and then I think we're going to stop here because, we have some time limitation. You can watch the rest on your own. And we have about 5 more minutes. We'll go back to the slides. And I will mention Shanghai Hospital number 8, which is in Shanghai, treats only with Qigong. They may have an annex on the side with herbs and needles, but that's a Qigong hospital. Master Jianshe Clinic in Hainan. One of the teachers from the Huasha Center opened up a clinic for 49 people in the Hainan Island, which is sort of tropical. He comes to New York about every 2 years, and we had him go around and teach, and Jinen Qigong and Wisdom Qigong. It's a form of Qigong, and we're in touch with him. Now, students of Master Peng in New York. Master Peng has been teaching bioenergy or Qigong healing, medical Qigong healing for a few years now, and every year he has a class. And some of his students are around. I'm one of them. And you can see me on his website. And his students practice. They went and they got massage licenses. And under a massage license or an acupuncture license, you could practice medical Qigong. So this is a way of doing it. And, if you really want it, you could get it. I teach a class. Some of the people attending are my students. I do it about every year or other year. And you get as a diploma from the Edgar Casey Center. They will sign up, and that's a name recognition, bioenergy healing. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now I'm going to go, it's a lot of material just to give you an idea how many topics are involved. Basic concept of Qigong, Qi and the human body, categories of Qigong, Qigong theory, keys to Qigong training, regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the emotional mind, regulating the essence, regulating the Qi, regulating the spirit, important points in Qigong practice, Qi channel and vessels, 12 primary channels, 8 extraordinary vessels, and conclusion. Next slide. This is machine gun. Inscriptions for Qi circulation from ancient pendant, Dao Yin exercises, 5 animal frolics, many other Qigong forms, 6 character formula for treating disease of internal organs, Yi Jin Jing, Qianzu massage, Lao Tzu massage, health preservation in the 4-volume code of Tibetan medicine, 24 seasonal division point seated exercises for curing disease, Qian Yi, Shi Yi, sleeping exercises. You could exercise while you sleep. 8-section brocade standing exercises, traditional. 12-section brocade exercises. There are the ones that didn't like 8, now they do 12. Xiao Yao Zi Dao Yin exercises. Various Dao Yin exercises for the immortals. Next. Okay, this is a repeat. Dao Yin exercises for the immortals, nice step exercises, and so on. Now, the origin of Qigong and the major schools. Traditional major schools, classical theories. theories of other Qigong schools, summary of modern research on Qigong, physiological effects on Qigong, psychological effects on Qigong, practical methods and skills, basic operation of Qigong practice, adjustments of body, adjustment of breath, adjustments of mind, integrating the three adjustments in one, classification of forms, guidelines, precautions for practice, possible reaction to Qigong practice. If you do it wrong, you may get, some Qigong deviations and you correct them. That's why it's good to learn with someone who did it before. Next. Classic exercise, the 5 animal frolic, 6 syllable formula. We did it today. Muscle tendon changing classic, 8-piece. Some of those things are repetitive. Post standing Qigong, very interesting. One in which you don't move, all the movement is internal. Internal nourishing Qigong, Roborant Qigong, New Qigong therapy, characteristics and indications of Qigong therapy, principles of administering treatment by syndrome differentiation in Qigong therapy, standard procedure and clinical routines of Qigong therapy, example of clinical therapy, 13 conditions. Now, the course that we give has only 13 conditions. There are more, but we figure that, this is not an infinite course. You get this much material, you will find your own way. And we planned another course in the future with more emphasis on treatment.